I've noticed in recent years that the firearms training community is really short selling a lot of people by selling 8-hour courses as if it's actually going to develop skills, because you're not developing a skill. If it's not a long-term thing that you can pull out on demand after a long period of time of being away, then it's not a long-term skills, particularly for law enforcement and military, where you don't really get all that much time unless you're in a special unit behind a gun, all that time behind a gun. So there's a lot of things that will push through your brain in an 8-hour course and just delete itself, because the brain operates in a specific manner, and so does the body, where our ability to retain a lot of skills is dependent on our brain's ability to identify it as a vital task. Now, a vital task is going to be defined as something that it uses on a daily basis. This is where, your ability to type without staring at a keyboard is actually a big deal, where you're actually straining yourself and you have rates of failure where your brain doesn't want to fail. It actually is competitive in nature, despite your conscious understanding of that or not, because it's catered towards survival, except for, those beta males out there. So anyways, you know who you are. So the first thing I'll talk about in ways of performing better is strength endurance. Now, a lot of people might think, well, it's all technique based. Well, you don't know what you're talking about, because actually you cannot actually control a gun that has recoil, and it is pivoting, and it is doing leverage. You're not jujitsuing a pistol or a rifle. You are at the mercy of it. So there is certain ways that you have to manipulate the gun, and it requires muscle to do that. If we didn't have muscle, then we wouldn't be able to control it. So you do need specific muscles in order to control it better. So you can't just technique your way to success. Once you're at a certain technique, it drops off. So sure, in some ways it's technique, like flinching afterwards, or snapping back on it afterwards. However, what's going to make you faster is coupling that with strength endurance, so you can actually unload a magazine and quickly stay back on target. So you're going to need strength in order to do that, not only to snap back on target faster, but also to be able to control the gun and limit the amount of recoil it has to begin with. So with that said, there are specific drills that you can do, or what I call ballistic, yielding, and overcoming isometrics that you can do. It's very unconventional. You're not going to be doing this stuff in the gym. You don't need to do this in the gym. It's actually not going to help you going to the gym. It could actually have detrimental effects to your ability to specifically cater your fitness routine to being a better shooter. You don't need to be bulky in order to be a good shooter. In fact, like I said, it could probably slow you down, because the movements you're doing in the gym mostly are not catered to actually developing shooter skill. It's just general fitness, with a center on aesthetics rather than function. So the next thing is proprioception. So we need proprioception to understand where we are in time and space. So when we're reloading without looking, you actually do need proprioception in order to get that coordination, which is the next thing. So proprioception is going to give us an idea where we are in relation to a lot of things, how we're twisted, and how where our body is. And so it gives us a good idea on where we are, and gives us that internal compass, if you will, and also positioning, understanding. It's kind of a sixth sense of how your body is. So that's coupled with coordination. They are different, because what I'm talking about in coordination is actually task stacking, not multitasking, because we can't really multitask and do a bunch of things at once. It's kind of like when you're trying to pat your head and rub your belly. What you're actually doing is task stacking. You're recognizing that this is going to be a monotonous activity with this part of your body, and then this other one is just going to do its own little thing down here. So it's a monotonous task, so you can conduct task stacking while actually talking. However, if I wanted to be faster in both, I would actually stop talking, because I can actually put more cognitive focus in being faster, and demand my muscles actually do things a lot faster. So that still requires task stacking and establishing monotonous routines on short notice. So anyways, when it comes to coordination, what we're doing in shooting is we're establishing a position, and we're actually holding it in an isometric hold, which is going to require certain muscles. So we go back to isometric holds that I would practice, or specific movements, snapping to certain positions and stopping when it's necessary instead of just going all the way. We need coordination for that, right? We need muscular coordination, but we also need to have proprioception and know how far we're leaning in relation, and know this is a limit, so I might as well just scoot out a little bit instead of leaning more. So I only need to roll out a certain amount. That's where proprioception comes in, where we practice in front of a camera and then we lock that into our brain. Okay, I know at this angle I'm going to be sticking out more, so I need to move my head this way or move my shoulder back or some sort. So that's where our proprioception comes in, and we're coordinating that in our brain through repetition and practice. So you do need to practice in order to lock a lot of these things on, and then have hand-eye coordination where you're actually able to present towards the target or the threat, and while you're maintaining that hold. Again, we're task stacking, and then be able to run through your firing sequence while conducting an isometric hold on the target and locking in your position, so to speak, or holding that position in an isometric hold. Now, the best way to be able to do that is coupling strength endurance with development of proprioception and coordination, and they do feed off of each other. So repetition and isolation of those specific skills through certain physical drills is actually very beneficial, but also varying those drills and also running yourself through scenarios is very beneficial to the brain in order to develop these skills. Now, I know this is getting very nerdy. However, if you're serious about actually developing these skills and you're not trying to come up with some lazy excuse like, oh, well, you know, family time, you spend a lot of time alone, you know, going after your own interests, or you spend a lot of time on the range without your family or something like that, then you have no real excuse not to actually develop these skills. It takes like 5-10 minutes out of your day to actually stack some of these skills up and practice those every day. You can micro train, as it were, and I've had to do that a lot when I have to wake up early in the morning and, you know, go do certain chores, as it were, or run errands. So there's really not much of an excuse. Even if you have a relatively busy schedule, there's ways that you can do what's called incidental training, where you have, you know, 30 seconds while something's running in the microwave. So while talking, you can actually do certain skills that are going to develop it. Ballistic Isometrics for, you know, improving your crush grip, improving your push-pull on a rifle through isometric holds and stuff like that. There's not really much of an excuse for not developing these skills, except for laziness, lack of creativity, and 21st century syndrome is what I'm going to call it. So anyways, you cannot really I personally do not believe that you can call yourself a dedicated shooter or somebody that's actually dedicated to self-defense and defense of their family if you're not going to actually take precautions in order to develop yourself in that ability. Now, the problem with not training, also another benefit to training more, is the more you train, the more you realize that a gun is not a hammer, and not every incident is a nail for that hammer. Okay? That's the biggest problem with people that are undertrained. They think every solution is with a gun. And that is a very detrimental thing. So I do encourage training more than just going to an 8-hour course where they're puffing you up and showing you the solutions to deadly force incidents. So there are a lot more solutions out there for everyday threats, instead of just pulling out your gun and trying to submit somebody with the use of deadly force. So anyways, with all that said, I appreciate you guys watching. Please take this seriously and get more training. It'll help you in your ability to shoot, whether it's hobby or combat related, and also or self-defense related, if you will. But also it can help your brain kind of understand with its capability that with great power comes great responsibility. And with that said, I appreciate it, and you guys have a good one.